What's up, everybody? Anybody who's watched anime for a long period of time will notice a pretty strange trend. Bad fathers. It seems to be a common thread between many animes where either the protagonist or supporting character has a weird or absentee father. In the world of anime, we've really seen it all when it comes to bad fathers. From dads who just outright abandon their kids as babies, to making their kids weapons or tools, to those who basically turn their kids into science experiments, to even strangely worse. Which makes us ask the question, what's up with anime fathers? Join us today as we dive deeper into this. To really start to analyze this trope or trend, let's take a look at where anime comes from. Japan. Japan is a highly conservative and patriarchal society with a heavy emphasis on the family. For most of its history, one's life would often be dictated by the occupation or position that their father held in society. The traditional outlook has generally been that men go out and work, and women stay home and spend most of their time raising children and dealing with household duties. In a population of 125 million, single motherhood is not common. Data from Japan's welfare ministry in 2016 showed that there were 1.4 million single-parent households, and over 90% of those homes were led by mothers. With concepts like lifetime employment, shushon-kyo, and karoshi, death from overwork, you'd think Japanese fathers are off working all the time. This was true for a time. In 1986, the average Japanese employee worked 2,097 hours, compared with 1,828 hours in the United States. By 1995, the average annual hours in Japan had decreased to 1,884 hours, and by 2019 to 1,714 hours. In 2019, the average Japanese employee worked 1,644 hours, lower than workers in Spain, Canada, and Italy. By comparison, the average American worker worked 1,779 hours. So how do the Japanese actually feel about their fathers? In a 1997 study called The Middle Class Japanese Father, a survey of parents of preschoolers, 1,147 pairs of fathers and mothers participated in a questionnaire survey. The respondents defined the father primarily as a breadwinner, support to the mother, and link between children and society. A majority of men recalled that their own fathers seldom played with them, and 41% did not think that their fathers were good role models as parents.
The tendency to have orphans in the story. Even in American media, the trope of bad fathers is fairly common. Many Disney movies involve orphans whose parents have made dubious decisions, such as Frollo in Hunchback of Notre Dame mistreating Quasimodo. In more modern media, we have examples like Rick from Rick and Morty, who is extraordinarily absent in Beth, his daughter's life, and even ends up cloning her. Or the numerous times he puts his grandkids Morty and Summer in mortal danger. Although these things are played up for comedic effect, people who have faced childhood trauma oftentimes suffer from anxiety, PTSD, and substance abuse issues. Still another example is Thanos' treatment of his adopted daughters, Gamora and Nebula. He kidnapped them, played them against each other, made them into assassins, and in Gamora's case, he killed all of her people. In Nebula's case, he replaced most of her body with cybernetic implants.
Now when we've all been waiting for an exploration of anime's horrible fathers, there's definitely levels to anime bad fathers, from absentee, abusive, to absolutely horrible. Shou Tucker. Dragonball Z's Goku. An anime we're all familiar with, Dragonball Z. The central protagonist, Goku, never gets a job, is hyper-focused on training. His sons ends up being raised by other people, with Gohan being raised by Piccolo, and Goten being raised by Chi-Chi, his wife he neglects. After dying in the fight with Cell, Goku waits until his friends have gathered all the Dragon Balls to wish him back to life, then let them know, hey, don't bother. He gives them the rationale on how he thinks he attracts bad guys, but in fact, as far as we can tell, Goku loves being dead. In all the episodes, we see him battling other dead people. He never spares half a thought for his grieving family. In the show, he flies off to raise, train, and fight Boo's reincarnation instead of just being with his family.
Hunter x Hunter, Ging Freeze. In Hunter x Hunter, one of the core focuses of the show is for Gon to finally meet his father Ging. After losing custody of Gon, he never visits him. Gon then embarks on a massive life-threatening adventure where he finally meets his father, who treats him more like a friend than a son. He tells him that they'll talk later. When Gon asks if he can come with him, he simply says he's too busy. Ging seems to be more focused on being an archaeological hunter and making it into the Dark Continent.
Honorable mentions in this section include Ash's dad in Pokemon is said to just be a Pokemon trainer wandering the earth. Midoriya's dad from My Hero Academia is never shown and is said to just always be working overseas. Kamina's dad in Gurren Lagann just left him in the hole after saying he'd come back for him, although he probably died. Luffy's father, Monkey D. Dragon, and grandfather, Monkey D. Garp, both sort of just let Luffy raise himself. His grandfather at least reunites with Luffy, tries to protect him, and did raise him somewhat. His dad kinda just abandons him and never really reaches out.
Enji sought to have a child with an ice quirk user in order to create someone that can inherit his will and conceive a child who was the perfect mix of both fire and ice. Enji's actions negatively affected all members of his family. Shoto, the youngest child, who was considered his masterpiece, but was really a tool that possessed all the right elements to exceed All Might's ability and nothing else. As a result, Enji focused all his hopes on Shoto, forcing him through incredibly harsh training from a young age and showing no concern for his personal desires. The rest of the children were ignored and perceived as failures. They weren't allowed to interact with their younger sibling. When his wife succumbed to a mental breakdown and attacked Shoto, Enji sent her away to a psychiatric ward solely to prevent her from getting in the way of the child's development. He pushed the idea of overcoming All Might so much in his oldest, Tabby, that Tabby became obsessed, almost destroying his body in the pursuit of power.
Baki the Grappler's Yujiro Hanma. Yujiro is a complete psychopath, obsessed with violence and fighting to the point he's basically the primary antagonist of the series. Baki's father only really seems to have a son so he can have someone to fight. Spends no time with Baki, fights Baki as a child and essentially beats him to death, only stopping because Baki's mother steps in. He promptly kills Baki's mother right in front of him. Upon learning about his other son, Jack Hanma, during the Maximum Tournament, he doesn't really care and just sees Jack as someone else to fight. After Jack loses to Baki, Yujiro dismisses a bruised and battered Jack and tells him to leave. Then Jack attacks Yujiro and Yujiro bites him like a lunatic and savagely beats him. During the Death Row Convicts arc, Yujiro does nothing to protect Baki from escaped Death Row convicts and even says to Muhammad Ali he has fathered many children throughout the world and doesn't seem to really care about any of them.
Attack on Titan's Grisha Yaeger cares way more for revolution than his own children. He messed up his first son, Zeke, who he tried to groom from a young age to be a spy in the military. However, he was such an uncaring father that Zeke eventually saw the military as a far better family and ultimately betrayed his mom and dad. Grisha lies about his past from his second son, Eren, and his family. He embarks on a double life to find and eat the royal family, the whole time endangering his own family. He's basically missing in action when Wall Maria falls and his wife is eaten by a Titan. He still severely damages his son Eren by turning him into a Titan, making Eren eat him to force the responsibility on him. And because of that, Eren only has 8 more years to live.
Naruto's the fourth Kazekage Rasa. Gaara's father, Rasa, makes Gaara into the Jinchuriki for the tailed beast Shukaku to One Tail, while he was still in his mother's womb, causing her to die giving birth to him. Rasa intended to use Gaara as the village's personal weapon. Rasa orders Yashimaru, Gaara's uncle and caretaker, and the only person who seems to care about Gaara, to secretly attack Gaara as a test of his control of Shukaku, forcing Gaara to kill his uncle, with Gaara only being 6 at the time. Gaara became feared to the point his father decided to continue to send assassins after him. All of this he inflicted on Gaara made Gaara basically the craziest character to ever be introduced into a shonen anime. Charles V. Britannia, Code Geass. He is the main antagonist of the series. He has over 100 kids who he thinks of as his pawns. He pits them against each other in a weird social Darwinism experiment. Fire Lord Ozai, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Gives Zuko a permanent scar for speaking out of turn and banishes him from the Fire Nation for not attacking him in their fight.
Shou is probably one of the most hated characters in anime at this point. He was initially presented as a sweet and brilliant alchemist, but he would later go on to create an animal-human hybrid called a homunculus. This creature could actually speak. Ed and Alphonse would meet Shou while preparing to take an alchemist exam. They stay at his house and learn from him. He also has a sweet 5-year-old daughter called Nina. Shou is basically preparing to present his research to be recertified by the military. But under the pressure, he creates a strange hybrid dog that actually turns out to be his daughter and the dog fused together. It's also revealed that his original breakthrough was his wife.
Berserk's Gambino. Gambino is the type of horrible we really don't see often in anime. Gambino was both physically and verbally abusive to Guts. Gambino berated his adopted son Guts on a daily basis, attempted to murder him while blaming him for the death of his lover Shisu, told him that he's a demon child and that he should have died, trained him brutally, put in a permanent scar on Guts' face, put him out on the battlefield at an incredibly young age, and in the manga he even sells him to a stranger for one night. Shigurui Death Frenzy, Iwamoto Kogan. Now this character is just crazy as hell and it's kind of hilarious, but Iwamoto Kogan is one of the strongest and most absurd characters not just in anime, but in media as a whole. A mad old samurai with 6 fingers, considered to be the best in Japan. His character is senile to the point he pisses on himself, demanding, overly sexual, and extraordinarily violent. He abuses his students who look up to him. He touches his daughter inappropriately. He sees his daughter as nothing but a tool to continue his line. When she refuses to sleep with his proposed successor, he has his students forcibly hold her down and is fully resolved to force her to sleep with his student. He's the one guy you're all happy to see die at the end of the show.
Let's look at a few honorable mentions. In the show Dorroro, Hakimaru's father, a daimyo in Futa, Japan, makes a deal with demons that trades all of his son's bones and senses in exchange for wealth and prosperity in his regions. When he finds out that his son is actually still alive after he tried to dispose of him, he attempts to hunt him down and kill him. King Bosei, in Ranking of Kings, trades his son's strength, hearing, and speech for power with a demon. He inadvertently ends up stealing his other son's body. While most Americans contend with their fathers embarrassing them in front of their friends, oftentimes our favorite anime characters have a stressed, tenuous, absent, or even a dangerous relationship with their progenitors. This trope flips the idea of what the father is supposed to be on its head, and it's a great way to give a character depth, something to strive against, or even a cautionary tale. As viewers, we love to root for the underdogs, like fatherless children. We look to be shocked as our notions of paternal love are completely dispelled. And most of us can't relate to being beaten nearly to death or turned into a dog, but we can relate to the struggles that one may have with their fathers. Except for Shou Tucker. Yeah, fuck him.